This is a Minnesota Vikings podcast most of the time. It says this in the title, a Minnesota Vikings podcast, but we do love other sports in this city, so we are going to make an exception to this rule, and we are going to focus on the Minnesota Lynx, who have started the season 2-2, 3-1, 1-3, or 0-4, because I highly doubt that they're undefeated at this point in their season. And I know Caitlyn Clark is 0-4 to start her season, so I would assume that means the Lynx have played roughly 4 games. I bring on my friend, my podcast partner, and I like to call him a master coach, because he has started his master's program, and that's what he prefers to be called these days.
Mm-hmm.
Jacob, I appreciate your willingness and your eagerness to discuss all things women's basketball on this podcast.
I watched the first half of the Fever game yesterday, so we can talk about that.
Which game?
The Indiana Fever game, Caitlyn Clark.
Yeah, Caitlyn Clark looks like what are those people called that are really short?
Just a short person.
Short person.
She looks very pedestrian.
Pedestrian, that's a good word to say. But in terms of her size, you know, people that are born and they're only like 3'2", and I don't want to be offensive to these people, but what are those people called?
Just
midgets? She looks like a midget.
I think that's offensive.
Sorry.
Caitlyn
Clark. Well, that didn't come out of your mouth. It came out of my mouth. If it's offensive because Caitlyn Clark looks like a midget on the WNBA floor, I'm sorry, midgets that are currently listening or watching this podcast.
I don't know if little people. I don't know if I ever say any of them.
Little People, Big World. That used to be a TLC show.
Yeah. So I feel like that's, if I had to say one, I'd probably say Little People.
Little People. Okay, Little People.
I also don't know. That also could not be correct. It's not.
How in touch are you with the Little People community?
Not at all. I don't. Yeah. Not intentionally. Okay. It's just not an aspect of life that I ever encountered.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's not like you're ignoring them on purpose.
Sometimes you call students like little people. So
yeah.
Closest. But...
Okay.
No. Anyway, yeah. To your point about Caitlyn Clark, she looked very, athletically speaking, she looked probably below average compared to the WNBA athletes around her. Yeah, definitely on the weaker side compared to a lot of her teammates and opponents. It's an interesting. Doesn't mean she's not gonna be successful, because there's always room for somebody who can shoot the ball. And she got hot finally yesterday, I think. She had 22 points or something, and she said she was playing her game now. Make a half quarter basically in transition, which was maybe a questionable shot, but it is interesting just how much more quickly the space to shoot is closed up. The space to drive is a lot tighter, right? It's just kind of everything. It's like anybody, right? You play in the best of the best, suddenly things aren't so easy. So
yeah, I could say something that could be potentially offensive to the WNBA community, but I think I should hold back these thoughts.
Yeah, keep that in the back pocket.
Should I say it though?
Do you have editing abilities? I would maybe.
No, I don't have editing abilities.
Then, I would maybe hold in your pocket, or maybe here they could do the power trip. They always when they censor each other say, "Hey, text me first to see if you should say that." So you can text me, and I could be your moral barometer if you want.
Okay, let me text you.
But
let me text you.
Even if I don't say it, I don't necessarily need you saying something that I am connected with if it's going to be offensive.
That's true. True. I just texted you one word, and that one word, is that a little offensive?
It's probably not worth saying. I don't know if that really adds any.
Right. What's the risk? It could add some funniness to the podcast.
Very risky with very little reward.
Really? I think you would laugh. I think you'd have laughed at that situation. I think people would laugh, and there could be big reward. You got to jump out of the box a little bit.
And I don't think it's you shouldn't be banished from media if you would have made that comment.
Well, then should I go ahead and say it?
I still wouldn't. Just
Okay.
But I play things a lot safer. That seems like when a Minnesota Tim is by himself moment. That might be their time.
That's true. Well, maybe I'll record a podcast after this one, and I'll make it a simple one-sentence podcast and say what I would have said on this podcast if you weren't involved. Because you're involved, I want to protect you and your entities.
Thank you. But that also seems like a lot worse if you make it a separate podcast, just one sentence that's like 10 seconds. that somehow makes it go from like, oh, that's probably not the best thing to say, but not a big deal, to like, ooh, that seems pretty bad. So somehow by trying to be more considerate, you would be making it worse. So I would maybe just leave it for now.
Okay.
There's going to be people out there who probably can guess what you were going to say.
It's
especially
true.
if they are familiar with your
my work.
Your work. Like I said, some people would find it funny, and I don't think it's necessarily like I said, it's not like terribly offensive or anything. And
yeah, I don't think so.
More stereotype, which again, 2024, we try not to stereotype often, so that's about.
I mean, what are stereotypes? I mean, are stereotypes because they're
true? It's a stereotype because there's truth to it. Right?
There's some truth. Doesn't mean it's an overlapping truth to every single thing.
Right. So it is. Yeah. Right. I'm kind of in the middle on that, where people do get up in arms over things.
It's not
like
a label. We're not
right.
putting a label on everybody.
And it's okay if you're, against the stereotype to say, like, I am against the stereotype. I mean, that makes sense, too. Like, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people do get in a tizzy over things often when it's like, no, it's not, it's probably not the best thing to say, but it's not a big deal,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we'll just keep it off. How about that?
Yeah, we'll not share it. Maybe in the future I'll be willing and able to share that, like people are for the national anthem.
Minnesota Tim on all the socials, and people can guess what the horrible things you were gonna say.
I don't think it was a horrible. Yeah, we can just go. We could go on and on and on, and this, but
making it sound way worse than it is. But
anywho, the Timberwolves.
Oh yeah,
1-7.
Mm-hmm. Just like we all said.
Just like we all predicted. After Jacob got down and was saying that the series was over, he's texting Adam and me saying it's over, and Adam was just trying to provide a little positivity, saying, hey, it's not over yet, we got a chance. Just kidding, it was the other way around. Jacob's like, just be positive. We got a chance, we're going into game 6, down 3-2, we could do it, and you know what? You were like a prophet.
Well, we've said it, right? You win game 6 at home, kind of the bounce back game. That gets you to game 7. Weird things happen in game 7s. They just do, right? Not every time, but the odds that role players who have been hot all of a sudden get cold, stars get funky. Just weird things happen in game 7s because the pressure all of a sudden gets cranked up to 10.
It was a weird situation that happened in Game 7. Even Anthony Edwards' 6 for 24 performance and Karl-Anthony Towns, of all people, putting the team on his back and not having 6 offensive fouls with his post-ups in that matchup was sensationally good.
One quick cat point?
Yeah.
Everybody's doing like the apology tour and acting like,
how could we ever say anything bad about Cat again? Look, Cat, forgive us.
It's okay, obviously, whether it's us or just any reporter or podcaster or even just a fan, right? Yeah. Cat was somebody who was not, granted, the teams sucked, so it's not just like, oh, it's Cat's fault. But Cat was not a winning type player for much of his career, right?
Even this season, and for a lot of it.
Season as well, yes. And he has, so again, as to the point being, he was rightfully critiqued with how he played, whether it be the hustle, the complaint of the refs, shot selection, offensive fouls, just all these reasons why he was not as like a 1A kind of guy that we wanted him to be.
He's the most inconsistent all-star player, I think, in the NBA because of what he brings night in and night out. Like Game 6 and Game 7, he put the team on his back. He posted up, he took down smaller players and beat them up in the post. Game 4, Game 3, he was nowhere to be seen. He didn't do a whole lot.
Yep. And so my point just being, it's okay to say, hey, this is a different Cat than the Cat we've seen for much of his career. And that's okay to be like, I ripped him or critiqued him or we called all these things out. He's not doing those things for the most part during this series and even the Suns series. He's been very just a winning basketball player, and obviously it helps having an Ant to take the pressure off of him and just the role players around him, but he's just been the cat kind of we all wanted him to be for so long. The cat that felt obvious watching it, right? The cat that where Ant has to call him out like stop effing fouling, right? In the Sun series where he's like, we win when you are in the game, but you just foul so much. You're just stupid fouls, right? Like that's what everyone's thinking. And Ant's calling him out, and it's true. I mean, he's mostly been avoiding those situations. Yeah, he still has won a game. It's kind of like anybody, right? He gets the ball about 40 feet from the hoop, decides he's going to drive, and there's all there is to it. He's going to probably get a charge or throw his hands up or do something all weird looking. But that's okay. It happens to everybody. Everyone has a bad shot or a bad decision. But he has at least been playing winning basketball, so I just wanted to say that. It's okay.
His defense has been sensational.
Now he's been better.
Yeah.
Yeah,
his defense versus Jokic, versus Durant. I mean, he's become a player in these playoffs that we've never ever seen before from Karl-Anthony Towns. And then he'll still have a game in these playoffs where it's like, okay, that was the cat that we've been accustomed to seeing in the first 8 to 9 years of his NBA career. Trade him, bench him, get rid of him, put in Nas, whatever. But then Game 6, Game 7 comes along, and he just plays out of his mind. And hopefully he can continue that into the Dallas Mavericks series.
Yep.
I need to say something that makes me sound really stupid, but I also think I was right. I was telling Haley about this, and I kind of had her somewhat bought in. But it seemed like I had to do a little convincing. So going into Game 7, I gave the Timberwolves a 5% chance of winning because of a number of reasons.
Sure.
Game 6, the Nuggets didn't show up. They slept walk through that game besides that 9-2 start they had over the Timberwolves. But the second half, they didn't really give a rip. Jokic was standing on the sideline knowing that he had performed great in Game 7. Nuggets, they just had no intensity in Game 6, knowing Game 7 was on their home floor. The Timberwolves shot lights out in Game 6. Their role players, hit a bunch of threes. Guys were just on fire. You won by 45 points. So I gave the Timberwolves a 5% chance of winning with all those factors being considered. They're down by 20 in their third quarter. And the analytics said that the Timberwolves, at that point in the game, only had a 2.9% chance of winning that ball game. So in some essence, even though I only gave them a 5% chance to win that game, I feel like I was sort of vindicated by my 5% that I gave them.
Yeah. Well, that's fair. Well, and I think Minnesota fans don't fully realize how unusual and how special that game was. I mean, we've kind of talked about it, or people have talked about it, but yeah, to your point, teams, the largest comeback in Game 7 history, right? At halftime, 15 points. That's the largest comeback in Game 7 history, if I'm not mistaken. That doesn't happen, right? There's a reason this doesn't happen. That's the defending champions are up 20 on their home floor with 10 minutes left in the third quarter, roughly. To your point, that's even 3%. If you would have asked me at that moment, seemed, too high, because all they needed was just a couple shots, and they just went ice cold. Michael Porter was worthless. All of a sudden, Caldwell Pope, who had been just like an automatic 3-4 threes a game, it felt like, he'd missed a couple. Murray got locked down by Ant.
Their bench disappeared completely.
Yep, bench disappeared completely. Aaron Gordon went from 11 for 12 from the field to I think he had 4 points in 42 minutes or something like that. It's just they fell apart, and that they're not supposed to fall apart, but they did, and the Wolves obviously had a role in making that happen. But yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I probably would have had it at a higher than 5% chance before the game, but technically speaking, it got to the point where your prediction wasn't terrible at all. You were on the right track.
So now they face off against the Dallas Mavericks. Wolves in 4. Wolves in 4. Wolves in 4. Wolves in 4. People might be mocking us for saying Wolves in 4 when we were going into Game 6 down 3 games to 2. but we were just forecasting the Timberwolves matchup against whichever team won between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Dallas Mavericks. So, to be honest, as I'm always honest on this podcast, even though I withhold some things from time to time to protect entities that I care about and love, I would have rather faced... Sorry, what did you say?
Like your children and your future children.
Like my children and my future children.
Oh.
I would have rather faced the Oklahoma City Thunder in the Western Conference Finals than the Dallas Mavericks. And it's simple for me. Who I fear from the Oklahoma City Thunder is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I don't really fear Chet Holmgren at this point in his career. Maybe next year.
Yep.
He's a good player, but I'm not like, oh my gosh, that guy's a superstar guy like Shai is. And the Dallas Mavericks, I fear Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic. And if Jaden gets in foul trouble, which he is going to get into because he can't help himself.
And Luka a lot of fouls. I mean, fairly.
He draws a lot of fouls, right? He draws a lot of fouls. I fear two superstar players over one superstar player in a superstar kind of situation, the Western Conference Finals.
And to your point, I mean, obviously there's a lot of factors, but if you really want to get specific, you could say the entire series boils down to Jaden McDaniels in two ways. One, obviously we need him to not be in foul trouble because he's probably going to be the main guy guarding Luka. You know, Luka's going to be able to score. Great. It's going to happen. But, right, can he make it hard for him and then make it, avoid the, hey, he scored 50 points kind of thing. But then Jaden McDaniels on the other way, because Luka is pretty bad on defense, right? Doesn't really care about it, doesn't really work hard at it. You know, you have to kind of hide him. Well, what they're going to do more than likely is hide him on Jaden McDaniels, I would imagine.
Or Mike Conley. I could see either one.
I could see him on Conley. It depends on their lineups, of course. But otherwise, Kyrie's then got to guard like Jaden McDaniels or somebody. And
that's true. Yeah.
It gets funky for him. They could hide him, but it depends on the matchups and lineups.
Probably Jaden. You're right. But
Jaden. More than likely, a lot of his time will be spent on Jaden, and he'll probably guard him. Point being, though, if we have Game 6, Game 7, Jaden.
Right. I mean, talk about Cat. I mean, Jaden's offense came alive in those games, like you said.
And he doesn't need to score necessarily 20, 25 to be that guy. But if he has like a 0 to 6 point type game, Luka Doncic can rest on defense. He doesn't have to worry about chasing Jaden around or switching or doing all this stuff. And he can just focus on offense, which makes life that much harder for the Wolves. If Jaden can be a role player that's a meaningful scorer, at least double digits kind of each time, it's going to be hard for Luka because that man is going to have to play defense and carry the load on offense. And it just, the depth the Wolves have are going to wear him out if that is the case. If they can't hide him.
Yeah, Chris Finch has said that Jaden McDaniels is the barometer for how the Minnesota Timberwolves offense goes. And it's so true because if he's not hitting his corner threes, you saw it in the Denver Nuggets series.
Yep.
They just leave him wide open. And they take whoever was guarding him, they load him up on Anthony Edwards' side, and they just let him take corner threes all day, and he missed them for the first 5 games of the series. Well, Game 6 comes around, he knocks down a couple of threes. They have to guard him a little closer, and then he gets to the rim, and then he has a couple dunks, a couple and ones. It just completely opens up the game for him and for Anthony Edwards, and even for Karl-Anthony Towns, for that matter, when he's posting up a smaller player or posting up whoever. It just provides so much more space because when you look at the Timberwolves roster, there are so many guys that you don't have to fear. And that's why the Nuggets got up 3-2 in the first place. You don't have to fear Jaden McDaniels. You don't have to fear Rudy Gobert offensively. You don't really have to fear Nickeil Alexander-Walker. You don't have to fear Kyle Anderson. I mean, that's 4 of the 8 or 9 rotational players that the Minnesota Timberwolves play on any given night. And if you aren't going to prove it, and I mean, Alexander Walker has made shots. Jaden has made shots. But you don't have to fear him. Like, what any coach in the NBA is going to tell you is, hey, if they beat us, then so be it. As long as Edwards or Towns doesn't beat us, then fine. If Nickeil Alexander Walker is going to knock down 7 threes and we're going to lose that way, okay, the chances are low that happens, right?
Yeah, you're right. Because, I mean, at one point, the Nuggets were trying to double Ant while also doubling Towns. They were trying to double both players. That's how little they were like, all right, other three guys, to your point, if they hit enough shots to beat us, then so be it. That's the way we're going down. But we're not letting Ant get easy stuff. We're not letting Cat post up smaller defenders or get catch and shoot threes. We're not going to let the Wolves do that to us. We're going to make Alexander Walker, even Conley. Conley's kind of streaky too, where he has all of a sudden 15, 16 points, and he might have 4. And that's the difference too between all of a sudden a win and a loss is if he hits those couple threes. Game 7, he had a couple big threes, and that's kind of part of the difference. Can those role players? They don't have to collectively each hit 3 or 4 or 5, but if collectively, if as a whole, McDaniels, Naz Reid, you could lump in there, Conley. Between those kind of 4 guys, if they combine for 5 or 6 threes, you're probably in good shape.
Everyone's going to make this the Ant versus Luka Kyrie series, but ultimately it's going to boil down to, is Jaden going to go 0 for 6 or is he going to go like 8 for 9? Yeah. And that's not a sexy headline. No one's going to advertise that. But back to the Denver series real quick. When Rudy Gobert hit that corner kind of fade away over Nikola Jokic, where on our TV, we have like, I don't know what kind of TV. It's not a 32-inch TV, but it's not like a 90-inch TV either. It's probably somewhere in the middle. The ball literally went out of the screen, and you couldn't see the ball. And then it just trickled in.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you watched the Ant and Cat press conference. But
I did, yeah. It was so good.
Yeah, but he's like, that's kind of when we knew we had him, when that shot fell. There's still 7 minutes left, but talk about the most deflating. To come back from a shot like that, it is difficult. Like when something happens that just shouldn't happen. When Jamal Murray hits a half quarter, you just go, well, it's that kind of night. We're gonna lose.
Right.
Granted, we were down by a lot anyway, but
that's how it goes.
It's that, and you're just like, all right, well, we're gonna lose if you're Denver because Rudy Gobert's hitting 18-footers that are fadeaways over pretty good defense too, outstretched arm. Yeah, that was pretty crazy.
Your official prediction for the Timberwolves Dallas Mavericks series?
I think Wolves in 6.
Wolves in 4. Wolves in 4. Wolves in 4.
With guys like Kyrie and Luka, it's inevitable that they are going to hit shots, and there's going to be big shot making. And I think they're certainly going to win a game or 2 just because if they score like crazy. But yeah, I like the Wolves' chances. Wrapping it up at home, or I guess I'd be on the road, I should say. But yeah,
I actually have a lot of fear because I picked the Phoenix Suns to beat the Timberwolves in 6 or 7. I thought the Timberwolves would have to beat the Suns in 7 if they were going to win that series.
Yeah.
They beat them in 4. I picked the Denver Nuggets to beat the Timberwolves. Obviously, we know how that went. And now here the Timberwolves are in the Western Conference Finals. And I think we're going to win.
Well, the hard part is, to your point, though, against the Suns, who was favored for the series?
The Suns were.
The Suns were. Against the Nuggets, who was favored in the series?
The Suns were. Or the Nuggets were.
The Nuggets.
The Suns were. The Suns were again.
Wow, crazy odds there.
Wow.
But look, and then obviously it's flipped. Look who's favored. Western Conference Finals. Your Minnesota Timberwolves are favored.
Oh, so I'm going to go Dallas in 4 so that the Minnesota Timberwolves advance to the NBA Finals.
Yeah. 2 questions for you. If the Wolves get out of the Western Conference Finals here, 2 things. 1, are you going to do the big balls dance? Sam Cassell style. And 2, are you going to get a Naz Reid tattoo?
Oh, only $20.
$20. Holly told me I should. She said, if they win a title, you kind of have to. I was like, well.
Wow. Holly's a big fan of Nas.
She's been watching she's watched a decent chunk of the last few games. She really likes Naz Reid.
Who doesn't?
Who doesn't, right?
I mean, my thought is, spread the love around. Why not get a Josh Minot tattoo?
Yeah, that's or the I don't even know who it is. The guy with the huge afro that just goes nuts.
Yeah.
Bench.
Yeah, who's that guy? Yeah, he's the bench guy. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't even think he was suited up, but he was just going nuts. Yeah, just every play that he's
Wendell Moore. Why not a Wendell Moore tattoo?
Could be, yeah. But we'll see. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I almost have to celebrate somehow. I mean, it just doesn't
something.
Go to sports.
Right. I mean, this is unbelievable. I mean, I told Haley, like, this might be going back to like game 2 of the Nuggets. I'm like, if the Timberwolves win the NBA Finals, it's not like my life is going to change all that much. My mood's probably not going to change. And now that they advance to the Western Conference Finals and beat the Nuggets in 7, I was like, yes, oh my gosh, I'm alive. Oh my gosh. They have a hold of my life and they affect my emotion. And I like to think that I have a little bit more mature sports mind and just like a reaction. Like when the Timberwolves lost games 3 and 4 at home and game 5, I didn't go to bed in a sour, somber mood, crying tears on my pillow because the Timberwolves lost a professional basketball game that I watched and stayed up till midnight to watch. Didn't happen. I just went to bed, went to sleep, woke up the next morning, and I felt like the same person. But now I feel alive, man. Western Conference Finals with a chance to get to the finals.
I mean, sports, it's okay to say that sports have a powerful influence. I mean, to your point, like, yes, if you're crying overnight, that's probably a tough look, but it happens. People are that invested, that happens. I'm more on your style, right? Where I wasn't getting emotionally invested, but after game 2, with the blowout, it was the first time I admitted to myself I now believe that they're going to win the NBA title, and I'm going to be
you and Stephen A. Smith.
Yeah, and I'm going to be kind of hurt when they don't. It was kind of where
yeah,
not not crying, not whatever, but just you kind of let yourself. It's more fun to watch if you kind of let yourself jump into that mindset.
Totally. Yeah, you gotta jump in.
What sports are for? It's what you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, what are your thoughts? Are the Timberwolves regretting the Rudy Gobert trade after Well,
the Western? I'll argue. I mean, a lot of people had to take at the time. The price was too high because who were they bidding against? Nobody else was trying to hey, let's add on. The Suns weren't going, we'll add another first-round pick, so then the Wolves had to add another one. That wasn't happening.
Totally.
So that part sucks. The player part, who cares? Even at the time, I thought that was not a big deal. Malik Beasley, good role player. That one kind of sucked. Honestly, if you add Malik Beasley to this team that we have right now, that'd be kind of nice. With his 3-and-D kind of, he's probably a perfect little fit, to take some of those wing minutes. But anyway, so that he was good. Pat Bev, who's been on 3 teams since then and is barely a role player for the Bucks. Vanderbilt, who fell out of the Lakers rotation very quickly once he got to the Lakers.
Got hurt. Yeah, got much hurt.
Yeah. I think those 3 players. Walker Kessler was the first round pick that year, who was okay. He's fine. He's not bad, but he's not
he had a good rookie year, and then he kind of fell off a little bit in year 2.
But still, it could be a decent NBA player. And then what is it? 4 more picks. That's the part that kind of is the kick to the cans. It's just.
But hey, you win the NBA Finals, and screw it, man.
Matter, yeah. And even getting, because that was most of the people's argument. Well, this trade makes sense if Gobert pushes you from a playoff team to a contender, right? It's okay to pay that price. And the flack was because most people, whether Wolves fans and or all the national people, said, well, this doesn't do that. You don't have a star yet. Ant is not there yet. And the rest of the team's not good enough to jump into the title contention. Very reasonable argument. But Ant ascended faster than people thought. And then the rest of the team has gone up to that level where they are a title contending team. And you don't think twice about that Gobert trade. Every other, if we're going to be decent the next 3-4 years anyway, every other year sending a 20-some overall pick, that's Nudie Eby, right? Wasn't he in the 20s?
Yeah, he was in the 20s.
It's just a crapshoot at that point. It's not,
it is. It's a crapshoot in the top 10.
And in this year, it's they're, I've seen people say the first overall pick would be like drafting Tobias Harris. That's the grade they have on this draft this year. There's nobody that's worth the high level anyway. So it's just you never know. I don't know.
Well, I got Bronny James. I mean,
Ooh. I mean, somebody's going to draft him. Can you imagine the Wolves drafting him in the second round and we get little LeBron James?
Little package deal with him and LeBron. Hey, Anthony Edwards is attracting tourists with his latest comments on NBATNT.com, and the Minnesota tourism website is literally bringing, if people type in bringass.com, it literally goes to the Minnesota tourism website. So maybe LeBron Googled it and is looking at houses right now.
Is it a contrarian take to say, I don't want LeBron on this team, and I don't know that he'd make our team better?
I would think so.
Just asking.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, he probably would, but the force that he is, and I feel like it would take away from what the team does so well. Just saying, I think he would mess up.
Yeah. Well, maybe we should. Jaden for LeBron? What if the Lakers offered that? Would we say no?
I would say no. Again, in the spirit of team build and age and chemistry.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other thing about when we were talking that Conley trade, right? Or the D'Lo, just all over. McDaniels is untouchable, and I feel like people in the NBA were just ripping that. Like, really, that's where you draw the line is McDaniels. Even for the Gobert trade, it's like you're not trading McDaniels as part of it. They were right with that one too. Conley and Finch and everybody saying no, this guy is somebody worth keeping.
I would still say LeBron is worth trading for.
In general, I would agree, but it would be, like I said, vibe-wise and fit-wise, I don't know how that would go. Because he wouldn't be the alpha at all, and he's still the alpha on the Lakers.
Right. You'd have to understand that.
Yeah, which I doubt.
He's going to be 40 years old.
He will be.
Yeah.
Question.
But, yeah.
How electric? First of all, do you have Netflix? Have we talked about this?
I don't have Netflix, no. We used to, and then we got rid of it.
Sure. You might have to subscribe next summer, because I don't remember if we talked about this or not. They are doing, or are doing right now, are finishing a, quarterback on Netflix.
Yeah, the receiver one?
No, they're doing yes, they're doing that again. But they're doing an NBA version this year, if you did not know.
I did not know that.
And some of I think it was 5 athletes, I'm not going to remember all of them. Butler was one. I think, was it Sabonis? I don't remember the third one, but the last two, Jason Tatum and Anthony Edwards.
Oh, man.
And I feel like Ant alone is worth watching just because he's Ant and he's crazy. But if that ends up being an NBA Finals matchup here, we're going to have I would hope that documentary is going to be very, very, very good. So just look out for that, I guess.
Well, I'm definitely going to look out for that. I would definitely subscribe for that.
I made it sound like it was like I was reading it.
Netflix, if you want to be a sponsor like Hokeland Farm is, contact Jared at 952-491-1541 for the best rotation grades, 100% grass-fed beef are out. Yeah, that's going to do it for this podcast, Jacob, unless you have anything else.
Well, I'll work on getting us another sponsor. I think we're going to the cabin this weekend, and we don't have a TV. So I sent out my bat signal to Mr. Sherwin-Williams himself to see if they would be at their cabin.
Yes.
So we'll watch the Wolves game with him, with Caleb and Casey on Sunday.
Yeah, pitch a good word. I'm waiting to hear back from him.
Numbers are up, and I will try to see if he can, he's got to be owning the joint by now, I would hope.
Tell him we're on YouTube now, too, and we have...
YouTube, you can get the clicks and the views, yeah.
Got thousands of views.
Yeah.
Thousands.
Subscribers galore.
It's seriously. I have the numbers right in front of me.
Yeah. There we go.
Well, everyone, thank you for listening. If you want, check out my next podcast, which will be about 10 seconds long, which is sharing the word that I was going to share, but I didn't want to get Jacob fired from his job. So, everyone, thank you for listening and for making this podcast a part of your day. And Jacob, as always, what was your title that you preferred to be called?
I guess you said Master Coach.
Master Coach. That's what you asked me to call you.
Yeah.
Master Coach, Thank you for your analysis and your insights.
Thank you. And Wolves in 4.
Wolves in 4. Everyone have a great day.